Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. I'm Rick Plaskett, a certified business and leadership coach here in Columbus, Ohio. And today I have the honor of my guest being Bill Montgomery. He is the CEO of River Radio Ministries here in Columbus. And today we're going to talk with him a little bit about his business challenges, some of the best practices, and he's got a really great story to tell about the best practices, share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can get future notifications when we drop new interviews, just like the one we're doing with Bill. So Bill, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Rick. It was a pleasure to talk to you and talk to your audience. I'm thrilled to be here.
So share with the audience a little bit, Bill, about, what does your radio station do, and a little bit about your journey of how you got there to be the CEO. I think both of those are fascinating.
Absolutely. Glad to share. We are a group of radio stations headquartered out of Central Ohio here in Columbus. About 14 radio stations strong. We'll probably talk about this. That number has grown a little bit in the last year from what was just 4 stations here locally. But we are part of a nonprofit organization with a couple commercial radio stations and numerous non-commercial radio stations, with the primary format being contemporary Christian music. So basically, uplifting and encouraging music to help people through their day, help them to keep their minds focused on Christ and positivity going on in their life. I joined the organization a little more than 16 years ago as the advertising sales manager. That is where I have spent the majority of my career in radio advertising sales. And so I was actually out in the Seattle area and got a phone call from a friend in college that was here at the River and said, "Hey, we're looking for a sales manager if you'd be interested in coming." And the short story was I visited and it felt like the right fit for me. And so now 16 years later, more than 16 years later, I've been here and now as our president CEO. Our CEO about 4 years ago decided he was on track to retire, and so began that process of succession. And through the succession planning and work with the board, I was named as the next CEO, and so I've been doing that. This is year number 3 for me.
That's super. Congratulations, Bill. So to set the stage for the viewers, tell us a little bit about the life, or maybe just the day in the life of a CEO of 14 stations. How does that day look like?
Yeah, the great part is every day is different. I love that. We have a tremendous team here, and so one of the nice things is I'm trying often just to be a problem solver and an obstacle remover and a cheerleader and just how can I assist in what we need to get accomplished? How can I go meet with donors? How can I connect with advertisers? How can I connect with people in the community for ways that we can help support what else is going on here so that we can be a good community resource? And so in the middle of that, trying to, probably like we all have to, dealing with all the emails and texts and follow up that we get, which is just a part of the job, and just trying to focus on what are the most important things that we can be doing to keep the organization going forward and to remove roadblocks.
Super. And Bill, you're not alone. Most CEOs do tell me the exact same thing. A piece of them is in sales, a piece of them is in marketing, a piece of them is in operations, and a piece is in the strategic vision. If you had to cut those into percentages, maybe on a weekly basis, how much of your time is looking visionary into the future and what you want this now 14 stations to look like? And how much of it is the day-to-day of what you said, connecting with potential advertisers and, being the face of the radio station?
I wish there was a consistent week in there, and that may be as self-inflicted as anything. getting distracted with getting in the weeds of things. But I certainly, I would say I would love that number to be around 15 to 20%. And I do take a day out of the office typically to work on those things. It's just often getting distracted in the other things that even come up during that. But I would say certainly some of the time we spend as a leadership team is focused on that, just what that is, and then trying to do some strategic things. So it's probably more realistically 5 to 10%, but I'm trying to bump that up a little bit. In fact, this week I'm taking some time out of town just to even be strategic about thinking about what's the future look like, and some of these changes have been in the last several months, and so where do we need to go, and how do I help continue to cast vision as well as listen to my team to get us where we need to go.
Super, super. Listen, that leads me to an area that you have grown up in, which is the sales and the marketing. And I'm just very curious, what has been successful in radio in the way of your marketing? How do people connect with you to know, to even consider, I'd like to work with radio as a advertising venue?
Yeah. It's interesting. We do several different things. Some are just to remind people that radio's here. So things like billboards. We also do a good bit of social media, both our owned accounts and then purchasing, reach outside of that in like Facebook, or maybe doing some things on YouTube. And those are different ongoing things that we do over the course of the year. To attract advertisers, I would say not only some social media things, we do some ads just on our own station where listeners that happen to be connected to businesses, whether it's in a marketing capacity, sales capacity, ownership capacity, let them know that, hey, this is a great place that you can advertise. And we get calls for that. We have partnered for years with the Christian Blue Pages, and one of the things that we do with them is, letting them know that they can advertise. Getting involved in local chambers of commerce. We try to do that in a number of the communities that we're in, go to their events, sponsor things. We try to be at a lot of community luncheons with other nonprofit organizations, civic organizations, golf outings. Just being present in the community, both with myself, with our sales manager, with our salespeople, our programming people. The more of that we can do, we're just trying to basically be the company that comes to mind first when people are thinking about advertising. And so that's a lot of what we do, and I think it certainly helps with whether it's a warm lead because somebody's familiar with you when you call, or whether it's people reaching out to us to say, hey, do you guys, you do some advertising, or do you help with advertising? And we were able to say, absolutely.
Isn't that interesting that the radio station is talking about all of these different marketing strategies and all these different avenues that you use? Bill, what's the number one successful strategy today for that marketing? What's bringing you the most business today?
I would have to say it's probably our own advertising to the marketplace through our own radio stations, and just some people don't think about their marketing in like with the things that they're listening to as I could be doing that. And so it gives us that opportunity to say, hey, you're hearing ads on here, or this is something that you listen to. Did you know you could get your next customer through the very thing that you're doing? And so I think that's probably the most successful thing that we're doing right now.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I would hope so. That should be the one that you wake up in the morning and don't even have to think about because you've lived it for so long.
Yeah.
Now,
sure.
as you work with these and the potential new customers and advertisers, do you track your leads? Do you have a CRM that you prefer?
We do not probably have a preferred CRM. A lot of it is what works best for our salespeople. We have, I would say we have tried unsuccessfully to implement a couple CRMs over the years, and probably I would consider that operator error. I don't think that's necessarily the fault of the CRM. I think if you don't, I think getting the implementation out of the gate and taking salespeople that have been in position for years, and saying, okay, you've got to stop selling and you've got to take all this data and get in here, has just been an uphill climb that we've never overcome. And so we just work with them to go, let's make sure you've got something that works for you that you're doing, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's another methodology, and just working hard with them to go make sure you're keeping track of this. And I think that ability for just them to do that themselves has really helped.
Bill, you're not alone. I understand what you're saying. I have been coaching for almost 19 years now, and I probably have a list that goes from the floor to the ceiling of CRMs that have promised the world. And you're right. You hire salespeople for a certain mentality, and that mentality is not filling in little squares on a spreadsheet or in a driven CRM process that smacks you or turns red on the screen when you don't fill it in properly. And yet, you as the CEO, you kind of need to know, hey, how many are in our pipeline? How warm are they? And what can we expect in revenue in the next future months? So it is a balancing act there that many of my clients, and Bill, you're not alone. Okay. There's all sorts of different highly publicized CRMs out there. There's some customized. The point here, though, is that everybody wants to be successful. And when you have some form of being able to track and remember, at least for me, it's called an external memory, because as soon as we're finished with this interview, I'm not going to remember anything unless I've written it down. And I know that that's just human nature. So your next best advertiser may be on a post-it note someplace, and just being able to use that as a tool to help everybody remember and to follow up is the approved solution. It's not a specific CRM, but being able to use that and manage toward that and build towards that. That's my answer to the CRM. So you answered the question appropriately. I was not looking for a specific brand name at all. Super. So let's do a little fast forward looking now. Radio is something that has it's changed over the years. And so where do you see this business in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a great question, and I think change is absolutely the right word. We are not burying our heads in the sand and saying, oh, there's no change to radio. In fact, I was just at a industry conference last month and saw some what I would consider good news from a study by Edison Research, and what they're finding is, radio listening as a medium is not going down in terms of the percentage of the population that is still tuning into the radio. People are still using it. It's still free. It's in the car as the primary location that people are using it. It's just getting more fragmented. And so, it's instead of, hey, when I'm in my car, I only listen to the radio, it's, hey, when I'm in my car, I listen to the radio and I take a phone call and I listen to maybe to my Spotify playlist, and I might listen to a podcast. And so we are, it's incumbent on us as radio operators is to really consider yourself as you are among the consideration set of all of those things. And you are, primarily an entertainment medium, and not that entertainment in the sense of, it's funny, but entertainment in the sense of I've got to hold attention and I've got to give my audience what they want. And I've also got to constantly be building new audience. And so that's really in the next 3 to 5 years, I think those that are not giving the audience what they want may continue to see a decline. And those that are continuing to connect with their audience, I think are going to continue to be moving forward. I think the other piece that we're seeing is you need to be everywhere that your listener is. So instead of just being in the car radio, I've got to be in a streaming service. I've got to be in a mobile app. You can get me on your computer. You can get me on a smart device like Alexa. And so we're consuming radio in all of those things as well. So I've got to be wherever they are so that when they want to consume me, they're able to do that. And we're finding that does get good adoption by people that are moving more into purely digital things like their phone. If you've got a mobile app, hey, I can take that with me from the car into the house and continue listening as opposed to just in the car only.
Bill, I'm wondering as you shared that to me, radio is really audio communication. And you and I both have enough gray that we can think back to as a small child when AM was the thing and all of a sudden FM came along. And, hey, I had to get a new transistor radio, one that could take both frequencies. And now we're doing radio is the same thing, audio, only you have many, many more frequencies, avenues in which to hit the two ears, which is your target audience. What's your approach? And please understand, I'm looking for your approach to goal setting, not specific goals or anything that would be a trade secret to you. But what's your approach to goal setting for this changing future? How many goals do you set per time frame, and what is that time frame?
Yeah, we have been in the goal setting world really breaking things out, kind of having some bigger goals for the year, and then breaking those down into the quarter with our leadership team, with kind of each group having their goals in those quarters, and then monitoring them quarter to quarter. Are you getting that done? If not, why not? Can we help break that up? Do we need to push that forward? Did we, what was the time horizon too quick? Or maybe the goal was not big enough, and we've got to expand that out. But that's really what we've been doing is trying to both look out, do some 3 to 5 year goal setting, but then doing some 1 year goals that are really looking forward to how are those going to help our 3 to 5 year, and then additionally, what can we do each quarter that is moving us toward that.
Super, super. Now, I want to drill down just a little deeper on goal setting and get into your mindset. There was several years ago, my personal coach challenged me because I'm military. I grew up in the military. There's no substitute for victory. If someone asked me my goal, I would say 4 because I knew I could get 4. Okay. And it took months for me to expand to 8. And if I only got 6, that was still better than 4. But my point here is the bottom line that my coach finally shared with me was, if I set a goal and I know how to get there, I know the actions, know the strategy, know the mindset to get there, then it's not really a goal. Just put it on my to-do list and get it done. She said a great goal should be something where it's a little aspirational and there's a piece of learning in there that or improvement that I have to achieve in order to get to that goal. So with those two comparisons, I'd like to pick your brain. Is what's your mindset of a definition of a goal?
That's really good, because I think some of the goals, because you want to feel a sense of accomplishment. I think some of the goals are, hey, I'm going to put this down because I know I can get this done. And so I'm going to be able to check some boxes, whether it's in a quarter or at the end of a year, and say, hey, I got some wins here that I really needed. But I absolutely agree that if there's something that you're not having to grow and stretch, I think your career is going to stagnate, your organization is going to stagnate. And so it's, if I stretch, if I grow, maybe we hit this, or maybe we get close to it. And that's where we even look as an organization and go, man, if we can get 80, 90%, we're going to call that a win. We're not going to worry that, sorry, you didn't get 100% on everything, so that's a loss. And it may mean that, you know what, I can't do this on my own. I've got to get some people to come alongside me in order to get this accomplished or get this close. And so that's going to stretch me as well and go, I've got to use the team. This isn't something that I can just do myself. And those have been very helpful to us, especially as we've really, I think in the last probably 2 to 3 years have really gotten more engaged in goal setting. And I think we felt like we've gotten a lot more accomplished than when we were really bad at setting goals or setting very simple goals. We got all those done, but we didn't really grow.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have learned in my experience as a coach is if you take business and you put it in parallel with sports, sports coaches are there to win. Yes, there's a lot of other things in little league and high school and whatnot of development and personal values and whatnot. But you put all of those together and they're building blocks, and it's about the results. If you're not winning, if you're not growing your business, particularly in a radio station that is part commercial and part nonprofit, and you've got a ministry to do, the more margin you make, the more mission and ministry you can achieve. The less margin, the less you can achieve. So it's all
Yes.
about the results. And, so many of, I have been connected with so many businesses that were all feeling great about these goals that they had achieved, but the bottom line didn't move. The number of new jobs created didn't move. The growth in the bottom line and both in the mission that they could achieve just didn't grow. But you mentioned a couple of things about people and helping you and asking for those. So I'd like to hear out of your words, Bill, how would you describe your leadership style?
I would say the first word I would probably use is collaborative. I have found that I work best if we kind of have shared goals, shared responsibilities together with our leadership team, and we can work on those together. And we can all make sure we're all aligned in the same direction. I recognize sometimes there's going to be decisions that have to be made that, there might be a disagreement and somebody's got to make that and determine, am I the one that should be making that? Should it be one of my other leaders because it's in their department and they've got maybe the knowledge base or the institutional knowledge to make that better, and be willing to say, hey, I'm going to let you make the call. I might do something different, but you get to do that. And so it's very collaborative. It's very let's talk about it, let's work through it and figure out who's going to make this decision, and then we're going to unify around whatever that decision is and go forward.
As you use that approach to the future in building the ministry business here, do you have many developing leaders on your team?
We do, and we're trying to get some more. That is something, honestly, that we've thought a lot about. We just had a position where one of our people that we've had for a while, we were able to move her up into a little bit more of a leadership position over a certain area, and we were excited because it's like that's what we've been wanting to do. But sometimes, as a small ministry or as a smaller business, unless somebody leaves, there's not an opportunity to move people up into that. As I look over the past, 16 years that I've been here, one thing that's exciting is, in our leadership team, I would say probably 60 to 70% of them held a lesser position in the company at some point. And so they have moved up. Now, some of them have been in that new leadership role for quite a bit of time, but we have seen people move up 1, 2, 3, 4 positions inside the company to get to where they're at now. And that's very exciting because they're growing, and we're constantly looking at how can we, grow our people. What are the things? Is it books that we can read together, studies that we can do together? Is it, doing a personality assessment, and how do we interact better, through those types of things? But I don't know that we always do a great job at it, but it is certainly something that we're very cognizant of, that we've got to set aside time to grow our people, going to conferences, doing other things like that, so that we're just constantly learning.
Super, Bill. I'm kind of curious if I could drill down just a little bit in that
Yeah.
area as well. You, as the CEO, what areas of training do you believe your people need in the next 6 months?
I certainly think, leadership development never hurts, especially for our leaders, and our aspiring leaders. So anything that, I can help them in that way, I think is good. Um, One of the things that I'm actually, as I spend some time strategically thinking, that I've thought about but haven't taken the time to do, is I want to get with each of my leaders, and hopefully this will trickle down into the others in the organization. But go, what is an area you need to grow in, and how can we support you in that growth? Some of our people get to go to some industry leadership conferences, but not everybody. And so what are some things, whether it's a podcast they do, a book they read, a group that they join, some have, mentors or coaches, and how can we help them, and how can I help them achieve that with the things that they see for themselves they want to do to go to the next level?
Super. Last question in that area of people is, with all of this years in the business and your team growing through different stages in the business, I'm just curious, do you apply any personality assessments, whether it's a motivators, a Myers-Briggs, strength finders? How much of those types of assessments do you know what's behind the curtain that you see every day?
Yeah, it's interesting. We as an organization, years ago, had everybody go and do a disc profile. Um,
Mhm.
and what I would find with those, especially if you were maybe having a roadblock with somebody that you were trying to work with, you could go to that disc profile and go, how do they hear better? How do they listen better? How do I get unstuck with my type of personality, and really do that? Um, Kind of the sad part is we have moved away from that as an organization. I think just time and things go, and so we get better at. One of the things we've just done with our leadership team and with a couple of our groups that we're trying to look at better, is Lencioni's Working Genius, if you're familiar with that. So
Mhm.
we have had our leadership team go through that and try to assess. And I don't know if folks are familiar with that. It's a little less technical than the Myers Briggs or the DISC. Although I think all of those have value, for sure. But this one just kind of, hey, what strengths do you work in? What maybe that you don't? It's probably almost like a simplified strengths finder, because a number of our folks have done that as well. Um, and I like that. But it's am I working, especially from a project standpoint? Am I likely to help take this to the finish line? Am I more designed to come up with the idea? Do I have the wisdom of discernment to determine whether this is a good idea or not a good idea? And getting the right people speaking into the right things, so people have both job satisfaction, and that from an industry or from an institutional standpoint, people are working on the right thing that's going to give them life and help feed what they're best suited for in their day-to-day work.
Fabulous, fabulous. I think that sounds amazing that you have the individuals that focused on their own personal growth. If I may just coach you for a quick 30 seconds on that
Absolutely.
disc profile. Disc is about the communication, and here I am talking to the radio guy about communication. But the level one of DISC is knowing what my profile is, what's my preferred. Level two is knowing what my coworkers is. Level three is being able to become a chameleon and give my coworkers what they need to make the decisions that I'm looking for. Okay. And then level four of DISC is being able to, without even taking the profile, being able to talk to different people and just in their way of communicating, be able to identify what their natural profile is and give it back to them. And I would challenge you that that communication builds more as a team in addition to your individual. There have been several of my organizations where the disc profile was actually placed either on the desk or on the side of the cubicle. So before I walked in to talk to anybody, I had a visual reminder of, hey, this person is different from me. You know, how should I communicate with them so that one, they like me, and two, they agree with me?
That is a great help and a great reminder. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for that, Rick.
you know, and you don't have to retake the disc. You just have to commit to, how do I communicate? And instead of sitting back and says, well, I'm an I, so everybody's got to come play in my party, you know, instead of doing that, go, well, yeah, but Bill's not an I, and I need him to agree with me. So what does he need to understand? And it's completely different. So
So
anyhow,
good.
like I said, something that you've already used, sometimes, you know, we use it, we put it aside, and then all of a sudden we're going, well, it worked back then. Why aren't we doing it now?
Yeah,
Hello.
that's good. That's good.
Exactly. Super. Well, hey, listen, we have certainly covered a lot of ground in our conversation today. And for those of you that are watching, I highly encourage you to save this episode, go back a couple of times, because Bill has really given us a lot of great nuggets. And so as we wrap this up, Bill, what I'd like to do is hit you with a section that's just called rapid fire questions. There's
Love it.
about 5 questions here. I'm just looking for top of your mind. You ready to go?
Let's
You got
do
your
it.
running shoes on? Super. Number 1 question. What's your key to success?
I would say my key to success is a quote from Zig Ziglar. You can help, you can achieve everything in life that you want if you just help enough other people get what they want.
Fabulous. That almost goes into the second question here. What's your one piece of advice that you would give to another business owner?
Um, Boy, that's probably, that's probably it. But just that, if I can be collaborative, if I can help other people achieve, I'm going to achieve everything that I need. I just read a manuscript for a friend. Something that he used in that constantly, it's a book on leadership, was a curiously humble leader. And I loved that, just thinking through that definition, curiously humble.
You know, Bill, that leads into my next question. What's one book that you're reading that you'd advise someone else to read as well?
Boy, that is a great question. I've read several, and that one's not available yet, and I don't even know the title because it's a manuscript. Probably one that has just popped up on my radar and is one hot off the press from a good friend of mine that's a sales trainer, is The Greatest Sales Question Ever Asked by Brent Long. The Greatest Sales Question Ever Asked by Brent Long, and it's a whole short but good sales philosophy that he's honed over the course of his life. I think would be a great read.
Fabulous, fabulous. All right. One more here, and that is, if you had to choose one area of your business that you could immediately improve, and tomorrow morning it would be running the way you want it to be, what would that area be?
Boy. I think for our business, we've got a couple holes to fill in some leadership positions. And it's kind of like, if I could know the future and know who the best people were for those and how those could fit together, that's probably it. Just kind of knowing what exactly those positions should be, who the leaders should be in those positions, and turning them loose to get it done.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. All right. Before we get to the final question, Bill, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, would you please tell the audience if they want to get in touch with you to become your next advertiser, or to simply talk to you about some of the answers that you've provided today? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The simplest, probably the 2 simplest things, if you go to riverradio.com, there's a contact form on there. You can reach out to me in the organization. That's very easy. or on LinkedIn. One of the things that I do very regularly is a weekly LinkedIn blog. I actually have a new podcast coming out on there starting tomorrow on Tuesday, March the 4th. But LinkedIn, just Bill Montgomery on River Radio, you'll find my profile and very easy to connect with on there.
Fabulous, fabulous. So here's the last question. Bill, what is most inspiring to you?
Most inspiring to me, I think, are just people that are serving the community, whether it's individuals, in a nonprofit, whether it's business leaders that are, just growing their people around them. People that are leading through service are absolutely the most inspirational people to me.
Fabulous. Thank you. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing in your journey. Clearly, I believe that you've been inspirational today. And audience, thank you so much for listening and watching in on this. If this is interesting to you, please stay tuned and watch the next one that we publish. And folks, make it a great day and bye for now.